All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us back on the Insider Conversations. I'm your host, Ben Stewart, and I have with me a good friend that I met, I believe it was 2016 out in LA. He flew in from Toronto, and he's from Collective Evolution. His name is Giovanni Bartolomeo. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough. Bartolomeo, but
Bartolomeo.
My name keeps changing these days, and some people call me G because it's easiest. Gio, Giovanni. I'm thinking of using my middle name, Herman Anthony, because it's a lot more stage-friendly than Giovanni Bartolomeo. So I use all aspects of it, so it's not something that's part of me that I never used, that I like. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start playing around with different things. So anything works, whatever tickles your fancy, I guess.
Nice, yeah, man. You're using it. You're utilizing your name to the best of the ability. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, just to give you a little bit more of an intro, when we met, you and Joe were going to the it was a Wim Hof training, correct? The Iceman training, and it was a 1 day, 2 day.
It was a weekend workshop. It was the advanced level, so it's the precursor to taking the full certification. So you can take like the online course, and they have an advanced workshop with Wim on a weekend. That was in LA. And then I had to go to Colorado in November for a full week intensive in the Rockies, jumping in lakes and climbing mountains and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Where in Colorado was that?
It was just 2 hours... just about an hour and a half west of Denver, in the mountains there.
Gotcha. That sounds around like Mount Princeton, Mount Yale, somewhere in there.
Something like that. Yeah, we stayed at a YMCA out there. I can't remember the exact name, but it was cold. But I'm from Canada, so it's nothing new for me. I've been training, so I was ready for it.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Pretty much everyone on the podcast knows who Wim Hof is, but the Iceman, he's a Dutch guy that's basically taken a lot of really good ancient breathing techniques and a lot of his wisdom just in his life, and basically repurposed it for some of the same. It's all for getting in touch with oneself and self-discovery, but also realizing one's inner potential. Getting in touch with the autonomic nervous system, which was once said impossible to do. That's why they call it autonomic, like automatic. But just getting in touch with the autonomic nervous system, which helps regulate your body temperature, your blood pressure, heart rate,
circulation, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
connects with the vagus nerve, and
he tried to simplify it, and his thing is happy, strong, and healthy. And he's taking all these techniques, using a lot of his own intuition, and redelivering it back so that other people can learn easily. And, that's the beauty of the method. And on the surface, a lot of people are attracted, like myself. When I watch his Vice episode, I was like, shit, man, I want to climb a mountain. That's like badass, That's what I want to do. I want to do something extreme like that. It's going to be a great life experience in my shorts, mountains. Like, let's do it.
Yes.
Then you start training and you start realizing there's so much more depth to the practice than just the macho-ness of climbing the mountain. But if that's what it takes to get people interested in it, then you know what? Why not? Let's use that as an advantage. But you start going deeper within in the layers within yourself on many levels of self-awareness, confidence, feeling your power, to go in the cold and go into an ice bath and really not be fazed by it at all and say, well, you know what, I thought this was impossible. I thought I should be dead right now. When we were in Colorado, we did a dip in a lake that was just basically just starting to freeze at the top. So it was cold. And I went in there we went in there for about 7 minutes, up to our necks. We didn't know how long we were in there for because we were being facilitated by one of the teachers. And I got out, and I literally couldn't feel my feet. And they didn't come back for about 45 minutes. I thought that was it. My feet were gone. But hypothermia, you're supposed to die after 2 minutes. But we'd been training. I would strongly recommend no one try this at home without proper training and guidance and supervision. Right. And I also want to add anything Wim Hof related. You should not do any breathing in the water or driving any vehicles. People have died. So use utmost common sense. I'm just telling this story as an example. We were around a really group of advanced people within the method, so we were safe, and we had facilitators there. I was in there for 7 minutes, and coming out of that, you're like, shit, if that's possible, what else is possible? What else did I think in my mind was totally impossible? Now that I can do, and I've sort of, like, the barriers around me have started collapsing, and they're collapsing almost every day as to where my mind is going now. So, okay, what potential do I have as a human being, and what limitations have I put on myself through thought only? And I have to try to sort of erase those and just be open to possibility now.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. I mean, the show that I was just on in Colorado was with George Nuri. It's called Beyond Belief, and what we were talking about is basically what I've been working on is the superhuman protocols. It's this book that I'm working on. It's called The Superhuman Genesis. And the main thing about it is, when you say superhuman, it makes you think comic books. It makes you think something that's beyond the laws of reality. But there's no science saying where the ladder of human potential really does end. But the one thing we do know is, you look back to the 1950s. Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile after everybody was saying it's physically impossible. Medical doctors were saying, this is what our science is telling us. And every eon or age that you get to, everyone thinks that, well, now our science is complete. Now we pretty much know everything. We're just, putting the pieces together. But even back then, they were saying it's physically impossible for the human body to run the 4-minute mile. John Landy even tried to break the 4-minute mile and said it's a brick wall. But as soon as one person does it, the floodgates open, because 2 years later, 300 people broke the 4-minute mile. Yeah. And all that had to happen was one person had to break that barrier of belief. So I totally feel where you're going with that, and that's amazing. That's exactly what I wanted on this show, was to talk about what are these limits? What does kind of limit us?
Yeah, and the more I look at it, I feel like science is just sort of an explanatory language to let people understand in a way that they can comprehend what's going on. But it's very limited, and it's very, in my opinion, although we have made huge advancements, I feel like we're still just scratching the surface. We don't even know anything about the universe. We haven't been outside to another planet. We're talking about these 7 planets that were just found this week. Well, I don't know which conspiracy theories you're into, if we're on other planets or not. But in the general consensus, like you're talking about, understanding and believing, is like we haven't even left Earth.
Yeah.
We're finding out about waves that are coming through the air that we're using for Wi-Fi and telephone and all these things happened the last couple 100 years? Mm-hmm. Who knows what other things are out there that we just have no perception of right now? Different fields, different types of energies, whether it be spiritual or energetic or who knows what. There's not, the words that I can say right now are limiting because it hasn't been discovered yet. But I think the potential is unlimited. It's infinite. And we're experiencing a slice of reality in this dimension, or whatever you want to call it, on Earth right now. But it doesn't mean we don't have access to everything, because I believe we have access to everything. But we experience it at one sort of experience at a time, is probably the terminology I use best. But it doesn't mean that can't open up in our lifetime. They talk about, evolution of consciousness. What could that mean? Maybe we start having extra sensory perception where all these fields start opening up, or other dimensions. Who knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just I think very limited what we do now, and we sometimes succumb to that limitation of science and stuff like that, where we sort of hinder ourselves believing like this is the way it is.
Yeah, we govern ourselves. We police one another without even really knowing it. I think that's, in a sense, kind of one of the inherent things about herd mentality, not in a negative way. I think the herd mentality is looked at as calling people the sheeple, but we govern each other, we check each other, because it is possible that we can get manic and start believing things that we're connecting dots that really don't need to be connected.
Yeah.
So that's the good thing about herd mentality, is we check one another and we say, like, listen, come back down to earth. But then there's also the opposing side of that, the imbalanced side of it, of when somebody's on to something but nobody else is in the space to be able to discover what that person is, then we try and first we try and just like, dude, come back down to earth. And then sometimes, with Facebook and all that stuff, it's not even the nicest way of delivery.
Yeah.
Where, we call people idiots for thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and I think that's very dangerous. Society is like that. But I think in a more supportive society, which, we're trying to build a collective evolution, which I'm trying to build, having events, is like, when people go off and do something different, they can come back and feel free to share it without fear of being judged. Say, guys, this is the experience I had. This is what I think is going on. Anyone else have the same experience? Well, you know what? I'm going to go try and see what happens to me. And this is how I translate it. And it's like, oh, yeah, I tried that too. No, you guys are totally wrong. But now we start talking. Whereas if someone goes out, it's like, oh, you're crazy. You're an idiot. What's wrong with you? You're so different. And they come back and they have fear. Like, okay, I'm going to keep that to myself. And a lot of people, I think, that are doing these things, that are having these crazy experiences, are afraid to share because they're fear of being ridiculed or thought of as crazy by their peers. You know, if they're business people, they don't want to share spiritual experiences. So I think that the landscape is changing where people are starting to feel more comfortable. But I know for a fact that there's a lot of fear and judgment. And this goes back, like even the 70s. I don't know if you read any of Robert Monroe's stuff. He did like out of the body, journeys out of the bodies. It was a lot about like out of body experiences and really how to tap into that. And at the time, this was like total craziness. His books are amazing. He has 3 books. And he talks about how to, more than lucid dreaming. It's just like remote viewing, but actually leaving your body. But when he wrote his first book, he was really afraid of being judged by his peers. He's a business guy. But he said so many people reached out to him after that had the same experience. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one. And then they were able to develop it and talk about it more and become more of a mainstream type thing that this is possible. And it's possible by human beings to do. And I think that's a perfect example that most people think that's impossible still to today, that you can leave your body and go and see the moon or go and check out Saturn's rings like Ingo Swann did. And Ingo Swann came back and told a story of exactly what one of, I think it was Saturn's moons, looked like to a T. And when the probe got there years later and sent back images, it was exactly what he had explained. And there was no way of him knowing that before the satellite probe went out there, right?
Right.
But these sort of things, I would think, why aren't we really exploring this? But it's only like the military is doing it. But I think the average person should have the ability to do this. But anyways, that's, again, a little bit off topic, but that's just an example of what we're talking about.
No, that's totally true. And in a way, one thing I want to get into here at some point is talk about collective evolution. But really, what is collective evolution other than a group of people who are utilizing the internet for the most efficient and beneficial way for humanity? Because if you look at the internet now, it's easy to say, yeah, Facebook is just full of trolls, but that's because those are the ones that stand out the most. Mm-hmm. Those are the loudest. But really, finding the others, that's the one thing, is like, maybe in a family, somebody feels kind of isolated and they feel crazy, and their own family is telling them, like, you need to stop talking about these kinds of things because you sound weird. But thanks to the internet, we're not just stuck in a family of agrarian peasants where everybody around, they only know farming, Yep. and maybe they like got a severe fever and then they had some type of experience, or maybe they were just seriously in tune. But nowadays we are able to connect with other people that can validate the fact that at least we're not crazy, as long as we're not validating, thinking that we are that we are God and we know better than everybody else, because that would defeat the understanding of what that is, that we are all part of this thing called God, if you want to call it that. But yeah. Getting back to the internet, utilizing it to be able to find the others who at least can share ideas, and in that you will find the best practices and the best methods to actually turn it into a science. And I think that's what Wim Hof is doing, is something that probably, people were looking at the people up in the Himalayas saying, like, what are these crazy people doing? It's wrapping wet sheets around them in the middle of winter. But, when you realize that this is a methodology, this is a science, and it's been refined to a point where now we not only know a lot more about what it means and what it does for the body, but it starts to loosen us up into other fields that are beyond just how to stay warm in the middle of winter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest struggles that guys like Wim are going to have, and other people that are exploring these different types of modalities, is that they're typically free. There's no profit model to be made. Like big companies and pharma, they don't want to invest in this stuff because there's no revenue model for them. How can you make money off breathing and putting yourself in an ice bath? They can't charge big bucks for that. So there's no interest. They're like, okay, the results are there. People are having amazing results, physically, mentally, emotionally. but there's no business model for big investment. So how are they going to really make money off piloting a study or investing money? So it's all like private investment. Who's really interested in helping? Philanthropy. The same thing can be said about stuff like the placebo effect. It boggles my mind how there's not billions of dollars put into figuring out how to use the placebo effect in replacement of a drug, whereas they try to minimize the effect. Like, oh, these people respond to placebo effect, let's take them out of the trials. Let's see how we can take these out, because they're getting better when they think they're having a medicine, better than the people who are taking the medicine. So we have to eliminate these people. Why not put as much effort in studying and say, hey, how do we get away from pharmaceuticals and use the placebo effect to heal people? Something like that, right? And the same thing with meditation, the same thing with fasting. There's no model of revenue for it, but the results are mind-blowing when you really start practicing and putting the effort and time into it.
And it also shows you that the people, the consumers on the other end, we are used to now, whether for how long of conditioning, we're used to needing to buy it, needing to have some type of product that's branded and packaged and given to us before we believe it. Because meditation, how long has humanity been talking about that? Now, let's say on the collective scale, maybe the agrarian peasants hundreds of years ago didn't know about it like we know about it now, but let's just say it's free to know about. Everybody has heard about meditation. Everybody's heard about fasting. Everybody knows that their diet could be better, but they need somebody else to be able to package it for them to make it easy, because we're looking for that ultra convenience. So that also kind of plays into it.
Yeah, maybe I should make a fasting pill. It'll just be an empty capsule and take one a day in place of meals.
It also works as a placebo.
Placebo and a placebo. It's a 2-in-1.
For sure. So I want to hop into, what do you, before I hop into the collective evolution, I want to talk about fasting and then get into just a little bit of, we've spoken about psychedelics before, but now what we're talking about, especially with the placebos, is being able to tap into things like DMT endogenously rather than needing to take it from the outside. And we don't need to dive into breatharianism, because that's not what this is about, but that keeps on coming up. People keep on bringing that up to me whenever I do talk about fasting. So there could be this overlap, which we don't need to get into, as far as, do we really need food as the vehicle for sun energy, and what is it that we're really getting from it? But before we get into that, what I really want to ask you about is, you're on a fast right now, correct?
Yeah.
How long is the fast, and how long have you been on it?
So the full fast that I'm going for is 108 days. 108 days, no food. I've been on it since January 21st. I think today is day 34 or 35. So I haven't eaten in 34 or 35 days. I'll have to do the math. So I'm drinking grape juice with lemon inside of it. And I'm intermittent dry fasting as well. So I'm only my drinking windows between 12 and 6 to 12 and 8 p.m., depending on the day and how my day's going. I have a little bit of tea, which is a special tea with herbs for kidney filtration. And I take some tinctures that are that I add to the protocol. Well, it's not the protocol I made up. I'm following a protocol that was developed that is for extra support for your glands, your kidneys. As they're detoxing, they need this extra support because my body's not used to it. On top of that, the only thing that I ingest is probably about a tablespoon a day of psyllium husk, which is to keep the bowels moving and to keep cleaning toxins out of the intestines. There's no real nutritional value in psyllium husk, so it's not really considered a food, I'd say. It's more just as a fiber to keep the bowels moving so I can keep cleaning as my body's detoxing.
So, I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, that's mainly the fast. And also a weekly, there's a longer dry fast, 24 hours. And then monthly is an even longer one. I just did a 3-day dry fast, which means no food or water for 72 hours, which is pretty intense, but surprisingly a lot easier than I thought it would be. But I've had a pretty easy go at this so far, and I'm going to knock on wood superstitiously here, because a lot of people doing a fast, they experience a lot of detox systems because a lot of things are coming up in their system as it's resting, it's starting to heal. As you're not digesting food anymore, your body starts cleaning itself. I've been lucky, I haven't really had that. I've had a few small things, but overall, it's been pretty smooth sailing. I've been eating vegetarian for about 9 years, and very limited. I was having a little bit of cheese here and there, but not much. No processed food whatsoever, barely any sugar. So my diet was fairly clean. And about a week or two before I started this fast, I was on an ayahuasca dieta. And I did an ayahuasca ceremony pretty much right before I started. So I felt like my transition was perfect going into this fast, even with the ayahuasca, just that cleanse emotionally right before I went in. But yeah, that's where I am right now in a nutshell.
Well, that's really what I wanted to tap into. I didn't know about the ayahuasca or the dieta. If you could maybe explain a little bit about what that dieta is, what it looked like, and how the ayahuasca helped you transition into this. Because the follow-up question to that is, how are things going emotionally? Like, what are some unexpected occurrences with this whole fast?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much. How much time do you have? Half an hour?
we have, we're 20 minutes in. We have plenty of time.
Okay.
I just want you to.
Okay.
This is really important for people to understand.
Yeah. Okay, so the dieta is a typical ayahuasca dieta, and typical is a very loose term because I feel like every shaman I've worked with has a different sort of protocol for the dieta. For me, it's usually obviously no alcohol, no salt, no sugar, no processed foods. I'm already vegetarian, so no meat, no dairy. For about 7 days before, a few people have told me that, for the best results, no sex or masturbation, yeah. No like release for at least 2 weeks. So I follow that pretty closely as well. And then, they say a little bit of rice, going up. I was just very clean in that regard. So typical ayahuasca diet. And then going in, one of my intentions was to understand more about the fasting process and how really, what is the truth behind, I guess, food and eating. I can't remember my exact terminology, but I just wanted to learn more about what I was getting myself into. And it was a very profound experience for me. I took 2 drinks, and I told myself before with this shaman, I never drink twice because usually the one drink really knocks me out. I really go on a deep journey. But I told myself if the question even comes up at all at any point during the ceremony that should I take another drink, that means I should take another drink. So about halfway through, I felt like I was coming down. The question arose, and I said, okay, that's the signal. I'm going for it. I went for it. I came back to sit down. This is a long story, so I'll try to condense it. But a few things happened that were a little bit different than what I was used to. And then at one point, it got so intense that basically I disappeared. My mind shattered into a million pieces. I was dissolved into nothingness. And at that point, right before I dissolved, I was cursing. Can we swear on the show, or is a...
Have at it, man.
I was like, I'm never fucking doing ayahuasca again. Like, this is it for me. I'm a fucking idiot. Why, with your ego, think you need a second drink? Like, isn't it enough? Like, isn't it enough? Isn't it enough? And at that point, I just disappeared. I exploded. My mind shattered. It felt like I started going through like brick walls with my mind. And every time it went through, the explosion got bigger until it was just like, poof, I was gone.
I think the most common thing I've ever heard about people's ayahuasca experiences, I'll never fucking do this again. But go on.
So that was the most intense. And then it was darkness. And I didn't even know what I was. I didn't even know I existed. And it was that coming back from nothing as I slowly felt presence. And I slowly felt that I had a body, which I didn't even know what a body was. I was trying to understand, like hands. I couldn't see still, but I could feel my hands. Because it was just like colors were coming back, but my eyes were open, but I couldn't see. And in this process, I felt like I was understanding how I was being created, what creation was like from a consciousness perspective. And then I was witness to, and this is sort of simultaneously happening, as I'm going through this experience, I'm seeing this big labor that's going on in the universe, like something's about to be born. Mm-hmm. And it's this process that we're all moving towards, and everyone's going through their own shit right now. And it's like we're really close at the cusp of this birth. And I don't even know any better way to explain it. And at that moment, as I'm coming back, I start seeing like almost like Alex Grayish energy type bodies. And I asked a question about, like human energy and food. And I'm probably not asking it in words, but I'm asking it with intention. And the answer I get back is that each one of us is a vibrant soul energy within us. But what we do is we restrict that through fear, thoughts, food, all these other things that take away from our energy, and not even take it away. It's almost like you're wrapping yourself up. You're closing yourself off. And it's showed that the understanding I was, the food is one of the biggest things we do. We're so trained to eat. We're so trained to, I have to eat 3 times a day. And your mind starts thinking, I need this food or else I'm going to die. Okay? But, from the reading and deeper understanding and integrating after, I started understanding that the breath is maybe the main source of energy. And other things, the sun, but I think the main one is the breath, and thus breatharianism, like you mentioned before. And also the books I'm reading, like Arnold Ehret talks about how the human body is an air-gas machine. Our energy comes from, breathing in the breath of life in the Bible. It wasn't the food of life that he gave to man; he gave the breath of life. So that energy, the oxygen is combustible, nitrogen is what's found in protein to build on. Hydrogen is in the air. You can make water with hydrogen and oxygen. So maybe our body is this chemical reactor that can take air in and make everything that we need, any vitamins we need. It can do that. Why would we think we need to put something in to get it out? Like people do blood tests to check their vitamin B12. But maybe B12 is not supposed to be in the bloodstream. Maybe it's supposed to be in your tissues. It's only in your bloodstream because you're digesting meat that had it in it, and it doesn't know where to go from there. It's not the right way to make it. It's made internally. These are all theories, so don't quote me on it, anybody. But these are just things that I'm thinking right now. So coming out of that, I had this understanding that I was still trying to figure out what happened. And after I was like, thank God I did ayahuasca this time. This was like what I came for, And it just shows that with all the things that I do, that you have to be willing to suffer a little bit to really get that gold. If you just want to stay comfortable and sit on your couch and watch TV and read a book, that's fine. But if you really want that deep understanding on your path, on your journey, you got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to be willing to push yourself a little bit further, not over the edge, but, close to it, where you're out of your comfort zone, where you're like, fuck, I don't know why I did this. And then after that realization comes, like, fuck, thank God I was able to see that. Now I have this understanding. So starting the fast, the first few weeks was like, I was hungry and I thought about food a lot. And I kept thinking about how I'm going to eat after, what's the first thing I'm going to eat, like this big addiction to food. And it was all I thought about. And I couldn't believe how much I'm addicted to food, how much time I waste on food, how much money I waste on food. Like eating lunch, lunch, I got to go out, I got to spend money. Breakfast in the morning. Then when it's dinner time with the family, we got to prepare food, we got to eat food. I'm like 4 hours a day is just food, plus all the money. And then I'm like, but I feel better now that I'm not eating. I have more energy. And this is not true for everyone, so don't think that it's going to be simple. I sleep less hours but feel more rested. I can work longer. I can focus for longer periods of time. I've been reading books like a maniac. Whereas before, like after 40 minutes of reading a book, I'd have to put it down because I just start reading pages over and over and they wouldn't be making sense anymore. My mind would just be gone. I can sit down and read a book for like 5 hours straight right now, and I'll be just like zoned in, absorbing everything. So like I'm having all these changes, and then I start realizing also like I have less anxiety, which I didn't really have much anxiety, but even if a frustrating situation comes up in business or work, I feel like I can easily deal with it, and my decision-making process is so simple, and it's like I'm calm, and it's like I know how to react very easily. Other situations, socially, like with friends and family, like less aggression. I feel calm. I can sort of understand what to do. I have a very clear path of the things I need to do in my life. And I don't know if this is all attributed to the fast, but I feel like every day that goes by, I feel like I'm in a better zone and more clear. So I probably went off on a tangent there in like 10 different directions in that whole rant, but these are some of the things. So if there's anything you want me to clarify, please ask.
There's definitely a couple things. First, I want to talk about, you were just saying about like emotions and like, let's say, reactions to what's going on in your outer environment. How would you say it's different now from before? Because the way that it seems like it's sounding to me is there's either this pause or this space in between you or in between the experience, the stimuli, and your response and your reaction to it. And what does that have to do, if I'm reading that correctly, whether it's a space or a pause or whatever allows you to be more clear and lucid on how you react and you respond to the moment? How does it change you emotionally in a way? Because One thing that I see as being a big issue, a big hindrance for a lot of people is they don't realize how they're overly emotionally investing in something, and then that's why you see a lot of the trolling and a lot of the angry delivery of content.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out, there's definitely a relationship between food and emotion. 100%. Now I can see it. I just feel like there's this calm certainty now where I have a different, I wouldn't say confidence. Confidence might seem like cocky or something, but it's more like a certainty where it's like, I have an understanding of what I need to do, and I'm very clear on how I need to do things. So when things come, it's just, okay, how am I going to deal with this situation? Whereas before I'd be reactive and fearful and defensive, and like it just feels different now. It's very hard to explain in words, but overall, a different sense of calm to me. And I feel that, going back to maybe one of our first conversations, is that when your body's not spending so much time and energy digesting food and figuring out what to do with all this stuff that's in your body, I think there are other energies that start opening up within you, whether it be intuition, whether it be compassion or awareness on different levels. Like, I don't even know the words to describe it, but I think your body starts operating the way it's meant to be. And right now, whether intentionally or not, we're trained to live a certain way, probably, maybe intentionally, maybe not, but maybe it's just where our path led us into this overindulgence in food, because we love to insatiate ourselves with tastes, and we don't care how we feel after, but in the moment of eating, it's like, yes, let me eat now. I think eating is a worse addiction than anything, any of the other addictions that are out there. But, I'm still trying to postulate my theories around them, because I'm still halfway through it on what the relationships are. But I definitely think that the food as a tool, like we know this already, but what, why, and how does it work as the food controls our emotions and holds us in this space? Whereas you start eliminating it, you feel different. Even the dry fast, if we don't eat or drink for 3 days, it's a big, big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, or did I just go off?
No, it absolutely does. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about was just when you were mentioning clarity, the clarity that you feel in the mind, how that leads to, let's say, in everyday life, when you're eating normal, when everything is normal, and something happens to you and you fly off the handle maybe, but having this clarity, does it give some space before you respond? Have you noticed that what you bring to the table of the moment is different because you have this mental clarity?
Oh my God, like my creativity, problem solving, like all the work I'm doing now is just, it's taking off to like the next level. Like all the things that I've been wanting to do over the last 6 months, in the last month I've done it. All the to-do lists that I haven't got around to doing are all clear now. Cleaned out my garage, cleaned out my office. Like, it's just like, okay, all this junk is out of my body. I got to get all the junk out of my life. All the things that are in my mind, it's either I'm getting rid of it because I don't need to do it, or I'm going to accomplish it now and get it out of the way. And it's just been amazing. Like, and I feel like it's the way I feel inside is the way I want my life to be outside now, clear. And the next thing that I'm really into is, once I'm finished this, is I just watched a documentary called Minimalism.
Yeah,
it's
I've seen that. It's great.
Same concept, And I'm like, you start seeing, it's like, I don't need all this extra stuff. What's the impact of the way I eat and the way I live on the world around me? Because I can see it clearly now, because I can feel how much different I feel. And it's like, now I want to embody that in everything that I do. So after this, I'm going to start cleaning out my closet. I'm going to clean out all the extra junk. And now when I go to buy something, like after watching the thing, how is this going to really improve my life? Is it something that I just want, or do I really need this?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I have to be cheap. Like in the documentary, you can buy really nice stuff, but you don't need 100 of them.
Right.
Just buy something you really like and enjoy that and use it.
It reminds me of a talk I was giving in Europe back in 2012, where part of the talk was I was speaking about the feng shui of the mind, and how we naturally create our environment outside the way that our environment is on the inside. And I was just using examples like, we typically, if you think of the nostalgia or the emotional investment that we have on our stuff, the stuff that we put out in plain view is kind of like it's the ego. It's what we want to present to ourselves, even, and the utilitarian stuff, like in the bathroom, the stuff that's more convenient and we need it to be out. But then there's all this stuff that we keep in our basement, and we shove it away in the corners, and every now and then we rummage through it like old memories, and it touches us emotionally in some way. And if we get to that point where we're like, I'm going to start getting rid of some of this stuff, it actually seems to mean something to us. We go through every little item and it's like, I don't know if I'm ready to give that up yet. And it almost sounds like to you, the feng shui of the body, what you're doing is you're clearing out, you're becoming the minimalist in your anatomy in a way, and clearing out shit that's not serving you anymore. And that's really what I think the minimalist thing is what is serving you. And some things, okay, you can't go through, I mean, you seem to be doing this 108-day thing. You're doing it in the right way, and that's another thing I want to kind of touch base on is when you're doing things DIY and you're doing it at home, like how much you really do need some type of guidance and some intelligence and some pre-preparation, if not even just to follow somebody else's curriculum, then just to know where the logic lies in what you're doing, and you've prepared your body so your mind can allow your body to kind of sync itself up with a logical step-by-step process. And I want you to touch on that, but before I do, just to wrap up this past tangent, is the way that we make our environment on the outside. It almost sounds to me like as you're clearing out all this inner stuff, it almost seems like it has to kind of somehow reflect itself in your outer world, and that's probably where all the inspiration to do it comes from.
Yeah, for sure. You're bang on. That's exactly how it feels, anyways.
Yeah,
and it wasn't so much thinking about it, it's just like feeling it. Like now it's like I feel I need to do this. Okay, listen, do it. And that voice is a lot louder now. Where before there might be that questioning voice, should I, shouldn't I, maybe. It's like, boom, do this. Go get it. You know what I mean? Like someone mentioned a rebounder to me about a month ago, and the voice inside is like, get it. I got the rebounder. I start jumping on every day. I feel amazing. It's helping to like clear the lymph and get that going during this detox. Like perfect. Then I watch I'm Not Your Guru, Tony Robbins. See this guy jumping on the rebounder every 5 seconds. Like, yes, that's like affirmation. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Thank you. Universe, keep pointing me in the right direction, right? But you just start listening to that voice. It's clear. Just follow.
We're watching all the same documentaries. So again, like right before the DIY thing, but this will lead into it, is the thing about food that I've kind of found, because I've gone through certain fasts and I've done I've done the ayahuasca dietas and stuff like that, but the things that have come to me, at least psychologically, seems to be we've been on food since day one. Since the day we were born, one of the first things that happens is the mouth goes to the breast. You start breastfeeding. And from that point forward, every couple hours, unless you're sleeping, you have food going into your system. And what food is, when you really look at it, is, especially when you look at Tony Wright's work with Return to the Brain of Eden, he really speaks about the biochemistry of food and the way that it, in a sense, kind of moves us along in our evolution. When you eat primarily fruit, or when you eat primarily meat, or this, that, and the other, your body starts to change because of it. And hormones are one of the biggest responses to food that you put in your body, and as well as the chemicals outside the body. But I guess what I'm getting at is, imagine you were on cocaine or heroin from day one, even if it's just a little amount. I'm not trying to make an extreme parallel. I'm actually trying to put this into context. If you were on heroin or cocaine from day one, every few hours you had a little bit in your system, and then one day you decided to stop, what are some of the symptoms you'd have? Probably very similar to what you experience on a fast, correct?
Absolutely. And that's the one thing I do want to mention to anyone trying a fast, is that ease into it. Don't try to go fast, because you're going to hurt yourself. Like, it's very serious how the reaction, the detox symptoms, your organs, like shit might start dumping out, and your kidneys might not be able to handle it, your liver, like, be careful, go easy, read. And even more important, if you do the fast, the way you break it is so important. Like after the Holocaust or World War II, all the starving prisoners of war all over the world, many of them died when they went home because they started eating bread, pasta, the stuff they loved. It clogged up their intestines and they died. So many of them died. Not a lot of people know about this, but it's very, very dangerous to break a fast the wrong way. And there's a lot of quotes out there that, it takes a strong person. It's hard to break the fast and to make the fast, or I don't even know how they go. But yeah, just want to mention that for sure.
Yes. So the DIY, in the DIY sense of the word, because most people, well, you can go to a retreat and you can do it under the guidance of somebody where they're physically present, but there are also books out there, and it's not necessary. You don't have to do it that way.
Books, Facebook groups too. There's lots of support out there.
And it could probably be very empowering to
100%.
find your own way within it, but to follow some type of guidance. What's the most important thing about following that guidance?
The most important thing with a fast is having support. Don't try to figure out too much on your own, especially the first time. Like, listen to people who have gone before you. And then once you're comfortable and you want to experiment, that's up to you. But the most important thing is that when you have those down days, when the mind starts acting up on you, starts telling you can't do it, or you start having an emotional release, because it's going to bring that up. The emotions will come up. The shit you hold down in your body on the fast is going to come up because it's trying to release. So when that happens, you need people to support you. Other people, like doing the fast as a group is a great idea if you can, or having a Facebook group online where other people join a fasting group. So that when you have that, you have someone to talk to, someone to tell what you're experiencing, someone to know what's going on in case you have like a physical reaction where your body is having a hard time going through this detox. Another thing I'll add too that's really helpful if you're going to do a fast is enemas. Enemas really help flush all the toxins out. So if you're not it supports the liver, supports the detox, the whole intestinal, the GI tract. It's really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, do it yourself. Read before you do it. Don't just jump in. A lot of people are like, "Oh, tell me what to do." I think the process of this is understanding and learning. So taking the time to invest not only in doing the fast, but understanding what you're doing. Don't just ask for like a quick Cole's Notes, what do I do, and then try to jump into it. Really spend some time to really familiarize yourself with what you're getting into.
Two real quick things I want you to touch on, because we are at about 42 minutes right now. I want you to touch on how your family is helping support, and have you noticed anything going on with them, like being around you, being the support group?
Yeah, like most family members and people that I deal business with, they're afraid for me, which is funny because I always worry about their health and like what kind of medications they take and like how much exercise they get and the things they put in their body.
Let me guess, because it's how they see you changing, right?
It's all visual, and this is the big thing you got to prepare yourself for, is that you're going to lose weight and you're going to look different. It's going to scare. Like, I'm okay with it, but it scares people because they think you're sick. It's like people say, "Oh, you don't look good," but it's like when someone shaves their head for the first time, they're going to look different, or shaves off your beard after years, or shaves a mustache even. You see them the first time, it's like, "Oh my God, you look so different. What happened to you?" So I'll see people a month ago, and I see them now, like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" So everyone's fear, and they're trying to tell you they know you need to eat, you have to do this, you have to do that, go see a doctor. But I think it's all coming from concern. But overall, because of the respect they have for me, they sort of support me in a way. But I think that they'd think I was more crazy if I didn't have a job, I didn't put food on the table, like if I was just, you know what I mean? Because like the perception that people have is sadly based around how successful you are in other aspects of your life. So when I do something like this, it's totally not in their, vocabulary. They're like, "Okay, I know you're a little bit nuts already. You do all these crazy things, like walk around, but I know you know what you're doing. So like, I'm not going to be too tough on you." My wife's been pretty good, really good. She just worries about me too. She's like, "Okay, enough's enough now. You should eat. You don't look good." I keep telling them, it's not about the look. Like, you have to give that up. In a fast like this, you have to be willing to give it all up. Your physical appearance, you have to drop that. And what happens most of the time, that a lot of people that have a lot of vanity or whatever you want to call it, by the end of the fast, that aspect of their life is totally gone. They accept who they are, not based on what they look like. So a lot of women who are self-conscious about their breasts, their hips, their skin, by the end of the fast, they start throwing out their push-up bras. They start not caring about all these things that they used to stress about every single day, which I think is interesting. I haven't experienced that to that same degree where, like, yeah, I'm losing muscle mass, I'm getting skinny. But like, I don't mind, like, because maybe this is the way I'm supposed to look, because I feel amazing. I feel light, and I know when I start eating a little bit, I'll put some weight back on, so I feel good. But support is there in my life, but a lot of people are asking the questions, like, "Are you okay? What's wrong with you? What are you doing?" Or the occasional, "You're crazy, go see a doctor." But overall, it's okay.
Dude, that's actually very important to mention, because I think a lot of the times when people go on fasts, when they stop short, it's either the hunger or it's something that scares them into thinking, no, I'm just going to step back where I was. And to follow through with it, and to really, okay, if your body is telling you, if something is telling you this is not right, listen to your body. But if you inside know that, no, like these people are worried because of what they're seeing, but I'm the one experiencing it and I know something good is happening, then you're totally right. And that's where you kind of have to separate yourself from that group mentality and don't let them govern you, because in a sense, like Michael Phelps, people were telling him, dude, you're training way too hard. You're not giving yourself enough time to rest or this, that, and the other. But Michael Phelps is one of the most successful, or the most successful gold medalist swimmer of all time.
Maybe Olympian of all time.
Olympian of all time. So in that respect, there is that inner guidance system.
Yeah.
And so the next question I really wanted to ask you is, do you feel that there's a difference in your pace in life, the way that you just get along in your day-to-day life? Is your anxiety more or less? Do you feel...
No, it's. I feel like I can do 10 things at once. It's crazy. Like I'm getting so much more done. Like, you know, like I don't know if I don't think everyone has the same reaction, but I think once everyone's cleaned themselves, they can get to that level. And I think that once you've cleaned your body of all the obstructions, emotional, physical, I think everyone can operate at a much higher level. And that'll be different for everyone, but I strongly believe that everyone can access that. So yes, a lot more productive, a lot more, like the speed is like, I'm just all over the place. Mind is clear. Doing things that I have to get done. Just to backtrack on the last question too, there will be times when it gets really difficult physically or emotionally, but sometimes that's where you just got to break through. And it's very important to discern whether you're having an emergency situation or you're just clearing something that's been deep within. And that's something that people got to be careful with, because in the group that I'm part of, a lot of people complain, oh, I feel like I'm going to die, help me, whatever. And then the next day they're like, oh my God, I just passed like 30 parasites, that night. And that was what was making them feel like they want to die, these parasites hanging on for their last breath. Because in the heavy fast, the dry fast, like these things are like goners. Plus add an enema in there. And everyone has parasites. I've passed a bunch already too, like going through this. So yeah, so sorry to backtrack, but I just wanted to add.
That's really important, because people that are listening to this, they are going to some are going to feel inspired to do this, and there's always a safe way to go about some of the most seemingly radical things you can do. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is, like, even if you do quit, like you said, some people might quit. If you fasted for 5 days, that's a huge accomplishment. Even if you're going for 108 and you lasted 5, 7, 10 days, that's a huge accomplishment. You've done something that you never probably done before, and most people have never done. So a lot of people think, oh, I failed. No, you attempted something that is very difficult that most people haven't done. So be proud of yourself. And if you feel like going again, maybe you'll get 8 days. Maybe you'll get 12. You only got the rest of your life to do this,
right.
But as long as you're actively going for it, like, you're going to keep progressing. And that's so important that most people think of it the other way around, that, oh, I didn't do it.
Yeah, and now I have to backtrack a little bit, because it makes sense that when you're breaking a fast, so let's say you were going for 108 and you stopped at 7. I've felt this before. The tendency when you're about to give up on your goal, you realize it was too lofty. It's still very important, even after only 5, 7, 3 days, even. Really important to take your time and do the breaking of the fast very correctly. And it's in the same way, like if you're about to end any type of process, you want to finish it in a manner that you are not just proud of, but like that is healthy and logical and makes sense. Because a lot of the times I've seen people that they're at the end of a 3-day fast, and they were supposed to go 5 days, and they're like, I'm just going to break it early, and they maybe eat an apple, and then an hour later they're eating cheeseburgers, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important to, this is a journey. This isn't just, a way to lose weight and to look good. This is a journey in life.
Yeah, and to add to that, you should think about how you're going to live after the fast. Some people just want to fast to lose 20 pounds and go back to their old lifestyle.
Right.
But you should really consider like fasting and then making adjustments to your diet to sustain a better level of health. Maybe a shorter fast on a regular basis, intermittent fasting throughout your life. All these things will help make you a better person overall. But and even myself, like my whole philosophy towards food is changing. And it has been progressively changing as the fast goes on. Whereas before I was trying to figure out how I'm going to balance this. And now it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to eat just these types of foods, which are not going to sort of limit myself. And I'm reading a lot about the mucusless diet, which is a whole different type of eating system. And the whole philosophy behind it is that fruits and vegetables are used to just clean our system, to help detox. They're not for nutrition, really. Like calories, protein, like I said before, it's based on these theories that are 200 years old that don't make a whole lot of sense to me anyways. Like, the amount of energy to heat up water equals 1 calorie, so all calories are equal, and there's protein. And, like animals, I don't know if I mentioned before, like a gorilla eats just bananas, powerhouse. A cow eats only grass, so strong, can pull a fucking tractor, creates muscles out of grass. Why would us humans not be able to do these things? Why do we have to eat a million different foods? We're the sickest animal on the whole planet. Cancer, all this stuff in our somewhat natural state. Doesn't make any sense, right? So the food is just to clean us out. It's an experience. You have a fruit, it tastes so good. Fruits come from the tree. They're colorful. They taste sweet. It makes sense that we should be eating it. Why do we have to cook meat and make it taste different than it actually tastes in the wild for us to be able to want to consume it, right? It's just logic in my mind. And that the energy comes from the breath. So that's what I'm piecing together now. And for me, it makes sense. So I'm like, do the cleanse, then go to this style of eating. And the important thing is that the cleanse is the big factor where most raw foodists, they miss. Because if your intestines are lined with mucus, and you're eating still fatty foods like coconut oil and avocados and nuts, it's still not working optimally. You're still going to get a lot of that congestion in there. And this is I'm still doing a lot of research, so don't quote me on it, but this is where it's leading. And it's that once you've cleaned properly, all you need is a few fruits here and there. You're basically living almost breatharian, here. Dude, and so that's where I'm going. I'm trying.
Dude, and honestly, like, the one thing I have to tip my hat to you is just taking this journey. You never know what you're going to find, and I can see that you're finding a ton of stuff. You're noticing a bunch of differences, but I like the fact that that this is just now, and later will be later, and there may be more clarity later. But what's really nice about it is seeing you actually going through this, committing to it, and not just committing to it like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but we'll see what happens on the other end. You're really doing it intelligently, and it's inspiring. So I want to say thank you for doing this and doing it, publicly the way you have. You're not exploiting it, but you're doing it in such a way that there will be support from people, and there will be questions, and people are going to go through their own reactions to you doing something like this.
It's been amazing. It's amazing to see that people that are reaching out. I post a lot of videos on my Facebook Live, and people are reaching out, and some people are inspired. Like, wow, like I've inspired one person. Like I never thought that I'd be able to do that. And the fact that they're asking me for advice is like, okay, I want to help you, but I want to help you help yourself. So I'll give whatever advice I can without trying to pretend that I know it all. And I just tell them, look, I'm figuring this out as I'm going along. Here's my experience. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey for me, and I look forward to see what happens next.
Dude,
I know we're running short on time, so I apologize for rambling on.
We're talking about what people we're probably asking. I'm asking the questions that people are probably thinking, hopefully. But this is super exciting, and we don't have to cut off. It's not like some radio show is gonna cut us off after a certain bit for a Coca-Cola commercial. The things I did want to touch on real quick before we end. Tell us what's going on with Collective Evolution, because I really appreciate what Collective Evolution is and what you're doing, and I want people to be able to know about this and know that not only do I support, but I want to also get involved. I got involved there with the fundraising, but what's new? What's happening?
Yeah, well, we're launching a news network, Conscious News Network, because we feel that there's sort of a lack in the market of these alternative media stories. There's a big war going on with fake news and, Facebook cutting our reach. But we know that there's a lot of people out there that are interested in what we're saying, that are resonating with the way we present information, where we try to get good information from both sides and present something that's not in the mainstream. So we're doing a lot online. We got the Conscious News Network, which should be up and running shortly. We're still working on docs. We're creating a new platform for our podcast. It's just basically how do we get as much information out there as possible about what we see as going on in the world. Even when something bad happens, what are all the angles to it? What's going on over here? And there's a lot going on right now. And it's a crazy world to navigate through and to try and make up your mind on what's real and what's not. But most people know when they feel it within, like what truth is, and that's what we try to sort of present an alternative to what the mainstream is. Donald Trump 24/7. It's like there's other things going on, and we feel that collectively humanity can change the world, and people need to get more active in their own way, in their own communities, and whatever they do. And that's the one side of the internet. It's like it inspires and it connects people, but now people got to take it a step further and reach out in their own communities and meet people on Facebook and have meetups. And we're trying to do that too. Like in Toronto here, we're having social gatherings in the city. We created a retreat center just an hour north of Toronto where we have people can come for a weekend and practice meditation or all kinds of different things. We have 25 acres. We're starting to do more workshops. So we're trying to combine. We're going to have an online learning center. We're just really, we have an online community. We have a members portal now where we can dive a little deeper if you're just, the website's about information, but now there's more stuff and connection. So it's about creating content, connecting people, creating community, and bringing this to the real world. And how do we support companies and organizations that are really making a difference? Not just saying they are, but going out there and trying to foster change in whatever way they can. And that includes connecting with people like yourself who are on the same mission and anyone else who's doing it. It's like, how do we create a solid network who really care about making a difference, who really care about this next step in the evolution of humanity? Because we're at a crux now. We're at a tipping point where, it can go either way. But I'm not going to go out without a fight. And I don't even want to use the word fight because I see it as there's the fighting mentality and then there's the new world mentality, whatever you want to call it, where we can create something without having to conflict. Defend what is ours, defend what is right, what we're sort of entitled to, which is the right to live, the right to choose, the right to have clean drinking water and fresh air and food, or maybe one day no food at all, who knows, if we go breatharian. But just have that and be able to live a happy life where we're not sort of just consumed by bullshit and control and all these other things. But I think it's possible. We all think it's possible. It just takes collectively all of us together to start moving in that direction. And it's already happening. And I'm positive and I see it happening all the time. So,
dude, it's inspiring. And, when you mentioned the fight mentality, one could possibly, if they're, just coming up with a flowery way to say what's going on inside your body, is there's a fight going on. Or you could take a look at it as, adding pressure to coal makes diamonds,
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable. Whatever's happening right now for a lot of people is very uncomfortable. And sometimes we're limited in our vocabulary, so we just call it a fight because, that's what we know of uncomfortable things. But in a sense, it could also, on the other hand, just be something glorious that's happening that needs the birthing process first and the birth pains.
Exactly. Yeah. Dig deeper. Look further. It's all there. Everything is there. We have it all within us.
Yeah.
Just keep digging. Yeah.
Dude, I just want to say it's been amazing. We could probably do this for 3-4 hours, all the topics that we're hopping on. But I just want to say, dude, seriously, big inspiration. I'm really glad we met last year, and I'm glad we're carrying this on. And I look forward to doing this, in different ways, different capacities in the future.
Brother, it's been a huge pleasure. Thank you for reaching out to me again. Also, it was great meeting you. We've been Facebook friends for a while, but to actually meet in person, I really felt that connection. I love everything you're doing. Any way that I can help and at all, just, you got my number. Call me anytime, and thanks for having me.
For sure, man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, signing off with the Insider Conversations. This was Giovanni Bartolomeo.
Getting better, yeah.
And yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in, and catch us next week. We will have Nico Sofianos in the same area, in the Toronto area. So thank you again, Gio.